The warning. The Galactic Council had spoken. A final warning was sent to Earth, broadcasted across the known universe. The Zorveth Empire, the most feared military force in the galaxy, had delivered its ultimatum. Surrender peacefully or face total annihilation. For centuries, the Zorveth had conquered countless civilizations. Their fleets were unstoppable, their armies unmatched. No species had ever resisted them and survived. The weaker races had bowed. The stronger ones had been destroyed. Now it was humanity's turn. The galaxy watched, expecting Earth to kneel. But Earth did not respond. There were no messages, no pleas for peace, no desperate negotiations, just silence. The Zorveth commanders grew impatient. They sent smaller scout fleets to Earth's solar system, expecting a display of submission, humans waving white flags, preparing to serve their new masters. What they found was nothing. A vanishing act. The scout ships approached Earth, scanning for signs of resistance, but something was wrong. Their sensors, so advanced that they could detect a fly on a distant planet, showed nothing. Earth was there, rotating slowly in space, but there were no energy readings, no active defense systems, no military movements. It was as if the entire planet had been abandoned. The lead Zorveth officer, Captain Ralvik, frowned. Check again. This has to be a trick. The crew ran another scan. Same results. They are hiding, a lieutenant suggested. Perhaps they've evacuated. Ralvik scoffed. Ridiculous. A planet of billions doesn't just disappear. But deep down, something unsettled him. This was not normal. Conquered species either fought to their last breath or begged for mercy. They did not vanish. Then, the first scout ship exploded. No warning, no sign of an incoming attack. One moment, it was there. The next, a fireball in space. Panic spread among the Zorveth fleet. They scanned frantically, searching for the enemy. But there was nothing on their sensors. Then, another ship went dark. Another explosion. One by one, the Zorveth ships fell. They had no idea who was attacking them. The silence breaks. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, high-ranking officials from every major species gathered, watching the transmissions in confusion. The Zorveth scout fleet had been mighty, equipped with shields and weapons capable of destroying entire moons. Yet, in less than an hour, it was completely wiped out. No distress signals had been sent. No reports. No survivors. Then, something happened that sent chills through every being in the chamber. A transmission came through. A single message from Earth. It was not a request for peace. It was not an apology. It was not even a warning. It was just 3 words. We are ready. Silence filled the council hall. No one spoke. No one moved. For the first time in history, the Zorveth felt something new. Fear. The first strike. The Zorveth High Command did not take defeat lightly. News of the scout fleet's destruction spread through the Empire like wildfire. It was impossible. A primitive species wiping out an entire Zorveth fleet without a trace. Unthinkable. The Emperor of the Zorveth, Supreme Lord Varric, watched the replay of the incident in silence. His generals stood behind him, stiff with tension. The entire fleet had been annihilated within minutes, yet no enemy was visible. This is deception, one of the generals muttered. They must have allies. Varric's cold eyes flicked to him. Then we will crush their allies as well. With a flick of his clawed hand, the order was given. A war fleet was dispatched. Not a scouting party. Not a warning force. A full invasion fleet, carrying enough firepower to reduce Earth to dust. The galaxy held its breath. Arrival at Earth. The Zorveth fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, their massive warships blotting out the stars. Thousands of heavily armed vessels hovered in formation, preparing for the final assault. Grand Admiral Kelm stood at the command deck of his dreadnought, watching as his forces spread into attack formation. His voice was calm, confident. "We will not waste time with warnings," he said to his crew. The humans had their chance. Now, we take what is ours. The fleet advanced. But as they crossed into Earth's orbit, something was wrong. There were no defenses, no planetary shields, no armed satellites, no human warships rising to meet them. The planet below looked untouched. Cities still stood. Lights still flickered. Life carried on as if the entire world was completely unaware of the armada above them. Keln frowned. Scan for energy signatures. Nothing, sir. No military signals detected. This makes no sense. The Zorveth had conquered hundreds of worlds, and this was not how species reacted to an invasion. The weak begged. The strong fought. But none simply ignored them. Then, without warning, the lead Zorveth battleship exploded. A phantom enemy. It happened in an instant. One moment, the colossal battleship was there, its hull gleaming under the distant sun. The next, a blinding eruption of fire and debris consumed it. Keln spun toward his crew. Where did that attack come from? The bridge officers scrambled, their claws clacking over control panels. No enemy ships were detected. It must be human sabotage. They're inside the fleet, one officer shouted. Keln's mind raced. That was impossible. The humans had no teleportation technology. They had no advanced warfare tactics beyond simple missiles and outdated energy weapons. And yet, his fleet was dying. Another explosion rocked the formation, then another. The fleet descended into chaos. Commanders shouted over the comms, demanding answers, but there were none. They had come expecting to face a primitive enemy. Instead, they faced a ghost. Earth strikes back. Then, the final transmission came through. A message from Earth. It was simple, cold, terrifying. We learned from you. Now it's our turn. That was when Keln finally understood. Humanity had been preparing. Not for surrender. Not for diplomacy. For this. And the galaxy. The galaxy wasn't ready. Humanity's secret weapon. Admiral Keln had always believed in patterns of war. Conquest followed a simple cycle. Intimidate, dominate, and eliminate. The Zorvath had perfected this for centuries. But this was different. This was chaos. The battle should have been over before it began. Yet here they were. Warships vanishing in blinding flashes of fire, entire squadrons going silent with no warning, and not a single human vessel in sight. The war fleet, the pride of the Zorveth Empire, was being systematically erased. And Keln still had no idea how. A battle without an enemy. Where are they? Keln bellowed, slamming his fist on the control panel. His officers frantically worked, but the results were always the same. No enemy ships detected. Admiral. New readings. Keln turned sharply, his claws flexing. Finally. Show me. The officer hesitated. Sir, it's not ships. It's something else. A projection flickered to life in front of them. Across the battlefield, Zorveth ships were firing at nothing. Their own torpedoes veered off course, their cannons detonating empty space. It was as if they were fighting shadows. And then, the shadows struck back. The ghost fleet awakens. Without warning, the Zorvath flagship shook violently. Alarms blared as power systems flickered. Direct hit. An officer shouted. From where? Keln demanded. The answer came seconds later, as the hull of the ship split open. From the void of space, black, angular warships materialized out of nowhere. Sleek, silent, invisible to every known scanner. They had been there the entire time, watching, waiting. And now, they had decloaked. Keln's breath caught in his throat. Human ships, but not the crude vessels the Zorveth had mocked for centuries. These were different, sleek, precise, with a design far beyond anything the Empire had prepared for. Impossible. The evolution of humanity. A cold voice crackled through the comms. It was a human. You thought we were behind. The voice said. You thought we were weak. Static. Then a chilling final message. We were just waiting. A blinding blue light filled the viewport. The Zorvath fleet's largest battleship, the Fury of the Void, erupted in a violent shockwave, its core detonating as human weapons tore through its shields like paper. More explosions, more warships disappearing into nothingness. And for the first time in Kelm's life, he understood what it felt like to be prey. The galaxy watches in fear. Across the stars, species that had once dismissed humanity watched in horror. This was not just resistance. This was retribution. For years, the Galactic Council had viewed Earth as an insignificant frontier world. But now, with every Zorvath ship that vanished from existence, they realized their mistake. Humanity had not failed to keep up. They had surpassed them all. And now, they were choosing who would survive. A silent nightmare. Back on the Zorvath homeworld, Emperor Varric watched the disaster unfold. His claws dug into the stone armrest of his throne. Not a single human fleet had been spotted before the battle. Not a single warning had been given. And yet, an entire Zorvath war armada was disappearing. He finally understood. This wasn't a war. It was a message. And humanity had only just begun to speak. The galactic response. The galaxy trembled. Across hundreds of star systems, the unthinkable had happened. The Zorvath Empire, the greatest military force in known history, had suffered total defeat. Their war fleet had been erased from existence, their invasion shattered before it even began. But what terrified the Galactic Council most wasn't the destruction. It was the silence. No grand human fleet had appeared. No demands had been made. No declarations of war had followed. Humanity had struck without warning. And then, they had vanished. The Council meets in panic. Inside the massive Galactic Council chamber, the leaders of the most powerful species in the universe gathered in a desperate emergency meeting. "We have to act now," bellowed Chancellor Vokthal of the Dranic Union. His reptilian tail flicked nervously. "The humans have revealed their true power. They must be dealt with before they decide we are next." Others murmured in agreement. "Their technology is beyond anything we predicted," whispered the Icarian delegate. "They have cloaked warships, weapons that bypass shields. They were never behind us. They were hiding." A tense silence filled the chamber. The Zorvath Emperor himself, Supreme Lord Varric, sat in his throne-like seat, his claws digging into the stone. "I demand immediate retaliation," he growled. "My empire will not be humiliated by a backwater species." But the others hesitated. The Zorvath had always been the Council's enforcers, their iron fist. Yet now, that fist had been shattered. What if they fought back and lost again? Humanity speaks. Before the debate could continue, the chamber lights flickered. Screens and holograms across the room went dark. Then, without warning, a single message appeared. It was not spoken. It was not written in any known galactic language. It was in simple, unmistakable human words. "We are not your enemy. But if you come for us again, we will become your worst nightmare." A chilling stillness followed. No trace of transmission origins. No known signal path. It had hacked directly into the most secure systems in the universe. The Council had no idea how it got there. But they all understood the meaning. Humanity had given them a choice. The fear spreads. Across the galaxy, the fallout of the battle spread faster than any war. Empires that had once dismissed Earth now studied them with wary eyes. Spy masters scrambled for information. But there was nothing, as if Earth had erased itself from all records. Merchants and traders whispered in hushed voices. A single rumor passed through spaceports like wildfire. "The humans are stronger than we ever knew." Even criminal syndicates, once eager to smuggle Earth's resources, halted all operations. Because the scariest thing about humanity wasn't just their technology. It was their silence. The Emperor's rage. Back on Zorvath Prime, Supreme Lord Varric watched as his empire stood on the edge of collapse. Zorvath forces were in disarray. His own generals whispered of retreat. His people, once proud and unbreakable, now spoke of fear. The unthinkable had happened. A prey species had become a predator. Varric's rage boiled. "This is not over," he snarled, his voice echoing through the palace. "We are Zorveth. We do not run from war." But deep inside, he knew the truth. This was no longer his war. This was humanity's game now. And the galaxy? The galaxy could only wait. The Zorveth's last stand. The mighty Zorveth war machine had never known defeat. Until now, the Empire was bleeding. Entire fleets gone. Supply lines in chaos. For the first time in history, their warlords whispered of retreat. But Supreme Lord Varric refused to kneel. No species, not even humanity, would break the Zorveth. And so, in one final act of defiance, he summoned the largest war fleet the Empire had ever assembled. 10,000 warships, 1 billion soldiers, enough firepower to shatter planets. Their target, Earth. This time, there would be no invasion, no demands, only extermination. The final invasion begins. The fleet tore through the void, moving faster than any before it. The journey to Sol took days. Every second burned with anticipation. Zorveth warriors sharpened their blades, adjusted their armor, prepared for the fight of their lives. They would erase humanity from existence. Then, at last, they arrived. And they found nothing. No defenses, no warships, not even a planetary shield. Just Earth, floating silently in the void. The trap is sprung. Varric stood aboard his flagship, staring at the planet below. "This doesn't feel right," one of his generals muttered. Varric agreed, but he was too late. Without warning, the entire fleet's systems shut down. Engines flickered, weapons powered off, shields collapsed. Panic spread like wildfire. "Sir, we're locked out. Something's taken control off." Then the first ship vanished. Not exploded, not destroyed. Vanished. 1 second it was there. The next, it was simply gone. Then another, and another. One by one, the Zorveth war fleet was being erased from existence. And the worst part, they still couldn't see who was doing it. The true power of humanity. Then the message came. It didn't come through traditional channels. It didn't come from the planet below. It came inside their ships. Across every console, every screen, every communication system. A human voice. Calm, cold, unstoppable. "You were never in control." Varric's blood ran cold. "We let you come." Another ship vanished. "We let you gather your fleet." Another. "Now, we end this." Then, for the first time, the human fleet appeared. Not hundreds, not thousands, just a handful. Sleek, black warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. More advanced, more powerful. And yet, they were few. The Zorveth outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. But that no longer mattered, because humanity had evolved beyond war. They didn't need numbers. They had mastery. The Zorveth are erased. One final message echoed through the fleet. "You wanted to see our true power." The sky burned. One by one, Zorveth ships were pulled into nothingness. Their weapons never fired. Their warriors never fought. The mightiest empire in the galaxy was reduced to silence. And when the light faded, only one ship remained. Varric's flagship. Alone. Drifting. Helpless. Then the human voice returned. "This war is over." And for the first time in his life, Supreme Lord Varric knew what it meant to be powerless. The end of an empire. When the news reached the galaxy, the universe changed. The Zorveth Empire was gone. The Galactic Council, once arrogant and untouchable, now whispered a single truth. Humanity was beyond them all. And worst of all, they had chosen mercy. Because humanity could have wiped them all out. But they didn't. They had only erased one empire. A warning. A lesson. And now, the galaxy understood. Humanity was no longer prey. They were the future, the unthinkable offer. The war was over. The mighty Zorvath Empire, once the terror of the galaxy, no longer existed. Their fleets were gone. Their homeworld was silent. Their people vanished, scattered, or too afraid to resist. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Not because of the destruction, not because of the speed of the war, but because of what didn't happen next. The silence that followed. No human fleet arrived to claim the ruins. No human diplomats demanded tribute. No occupying force set foot on the shattered remains of Zorvath Prime. Humanity had wiped their greatest enemy from existence, and then walked away. The Galactic Council gathered in secret, terrified. They had always assumed war ended with conquest, that the victor would claim territory, absorb power, rewrite the rules. But humanity had taken nothing. They hadn't conquered. They had punished. And now, the surviving powers of the galaxy had to face a terrifying question. What does a species do when it no longer fears anything? The Council's dilemma. Panic spread through the Galactic Council chamber. Some wanted to beg for peace. Others whispered of countermeasures. But no one knew what humanity truly wanted. For days, there was silence. Then, without warning, Earth sent a message. It was not a declaration. It was not a demand. It was an offer. Humanity's terms. The message was short, cold, final. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. But the days of galactic empires are over. You will dismantle your weapons of oppression. You will end the enslavement of lesser species. You will cease expansion through force, or we will return. No threats, no negotiations, just a choice. Obey or be erased. The galaxy holds its breath. It wasn't a choice at all. One by one, the Council species surrendered without a fight. The Dranic Union, the Cathari Dominion, the Veskari clans, they all bent the knee. Worlds that had suffered under tyranny revolted overnight, knowing humanity would not allow them to be crushed again. Entire empires collapsed, without a single human ship firing a shot. Because now, every species in the galaxy understood the truth. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries. But while the others had been fighting over scraps, humanity had surpassed them all. They had mastered technology beyond imagination. They had rewritten the rules of war. And now, they had decided the future of the galaxy. A new galactic order. One by one, the Council species accepted the terms. Empires dismantled their slave armies. War-driven species retreated to their homeworlds. Weapons once used to dominate were abandoned. And all the while, humanity remained silent. Because they didn't need to rule. They had already won, and they had done it without ever claiming a throne. The whispered name. Across the universe, a legend was born. Not of a warlord, not of an emperor, but of a ghost. A species that had walked among the stars as prey, and then chosen to become the predator. A species that had never sought power, yet now held the fate of the galaxy in its hands. And so, the whispers spread, across every world, across every empire, across every species that had once ruled without fear. A single truth, a single warning. Never cross humanity. The new galactic order. The war had ended, not with a treaty, not with a grand battle, but with a whisper. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy had listened. Empires crumbled. War fleets disbanded. Oppressors became the oppressed. And yet, Earth did not rule. They took no throne. They made no empire. They simply disappeared. The aftermath of fear. The Galactic Council remained, fractured, leaderless, afraid. For the first time in history, there were no wars, because everyone feared the unseen hand of humanity. There were no human patrols, no conquering forces, no occupying armies. And yet, whenever a warlord considered rising, whenever an empire considered expansion, they hesitated, because they knew Humanity was watching. The last stand of a dying king. On a distant, dying world, Supreme Lord Varric, the last remnant of the Zorth Empire, sat alone in the ruins of his once mighty palace. The empire that had ruled for centuries was gone. His fleets were dust. His armies were ghosts. And yet no human had ever come for him. They had left him to rot. And somehow, that was worse. Varric clenched his claws, eyes burning with fury. They should have finished us, he growled. They should have taken the throne. But they hadn't. They had erased the Zorvath, not for power, but for a lesson. And now, the galaxy knew it well. Do not test humanity, or they will erase you like you never existed. The final message. In the deepest void of space, beyond the edges of the known universe, a signal pulsed. A simple message, sent from nowhere, traced to nothing, but seen by everyone. We are still here. We will always be here. Remember. And just like that, the message was gone. The legacy of humanity. The galaxy changed, not because of war, not because of treaties, but because of fear. The greatest civilizations of the universe, once mighty and arrogant, now lived under a single law. Stay in your lane. Do not oppress. Do not conquer. Because if you did, humanity would return. And no one wanted to see what they were truly capable of when pushed too far. The end. Because humanity was beyond conquest.